Hey guys, this is Austin Delano at Mossy Oak, and today we're going to go over some trail cam tips to help you get better pictures from your game camera. Trail camera basics, there's some easy things you can do to help your camera pictures turn out better to get the best pictures possible. One thing you want to do is try to keep your game cameras facing north. It's a pretty simple tip, but a lot of times you see a lot of cameras facing due east or due west and you're catching way too much sunlight one way or the other and it washes the picture out. So try to keep your cameras pointing north. That'll cut down on a lot of washed out pictures and also false triggers when there's nothing there. Some of the other things are making sure you've got a clear background behind your picture where you intend for the game to be in front of your camera. That's going to make a big difference on being able to distinguish what kind of deer are there. And another thing, you want to make sure you're using high quality batteries. You don't want a bunch of cheap batteries that might explode inside of your $400 or $500 game camera. Sounds like a simple tip, but it happens a lot. So use good high quality batteries. Same thing with memory cards. The cheap SDs, sometimes the picture doesn't write onto the card very well. So use the high quality cards and they write fast. So if you're looking for the best trail camera for you in your situation, you can always go online, just look up trail camera reviews where you can find out all the different information on the different kinds of cameras there are and what's going to fit your situation the best. So some of the basics on how to set up a trail camera, today's cameras have got a ton of options on there that you can set them up specific to the situation that you're putting your camera in front of. Some of the simple things to get good deer pictures on your trail camera, if you're putting your camera over bait, whether it be corn or a mineral lick or whatever you might be using, you want to turn your picture frequency and sensitivity down. And what that's going to do is keep you from getting too many pictures of the same deer and just using up a lot of battery on the same deer over and over. And on the flip side, if you're just using your camera over a scrape or a trail or maybe the opening of a food plot, you want to turn your picture frequency up and also turn the sensitivity on your camera up so that you catch everything that moves through there, because you're not betting on them coming to one spot because of bait. You're trying to catch them moving through. So we want to talk a little bit about trail camera placement and where you're going to be setting up your camera at for the best pictures. I like to have a trail camera strategy, making sure you've got an idea where the deer are going to be traveling at and picking out the best tree or making a tree out of a T-post or something similar to that so that you've got the perfect place to mount the camera to get ideal pictures of your deer on the game camera. One of the things we've got set up right here is we've got a trail coming, but we don't have an ideal tree because it's leaning really bad. So what we're going to do is use a mount that allows us to get the camera at the right angle so that we get the best pictures from our trail camera. Smoke and lightning make it hard to see. I gotta keep moving, I won't miss. Man, gotta stand. Some of the best places to hang your trail cameras, a lot of times there's not a tree there and you have to improvise a little bit, but you want to pay attention to a spot like we've got right here where you've got a creek crossing, you've got a food source pretty close by, and you can tell that they're traveling to and from those areas. You can get a camera mounted that's going to catch not only them traveling to and from the food source, but coming in out of the water, whether you've got a creek crossing or a mineral site right by a creek crossing. Some of those are some of the best places for candid pictures where you're not just got a picture of a deer with its face in a pile of corn, but you're just getting real life movement of deer crossing, going to and from bedding, food, water, and cover. So we're going to talk a little bit about some game camera mounting tips. One thing I think that kind of gets overlooked is the height that people mount the trail cameras. I see a lot of them that get mounted 2 and 3 feet off the ground, which sometimes limits your field of view with your cameras. I kind of like to mount mine up, at least head high, if not a little bit higher. And what that allows you to do is get the camera up off the ground and angle it down a little bit so that you're getting a lot wider field of view so that your camera can pick up a lot more movement from a wider area. So usually most cameras are going to shoot their best pictures daytime and nighttime, somewhere between 10 to 20 feet. Now when you're using something like this mineral rock we've got here or a bait site, you already know where you're going to have the deer crossing or moving, so you want to make sure your camera is placed at a good distance to get the best pictures possible. If you've got the camera too close to the bait side or the mineral, whatever you've got put out, some of your nighttime pictures can get really blown out because that flash is too close to the animal. So you want to make sure your distance is 10 to 20 feet. You know, the flash range for most cameras is going to work best in that 10, 15, 20, 25 feet area rather than it being way too far out and your flash not being able to pick up the target animal out there. So a lot of guys want to know where to place their trail camera to get some really good game camera pictures. In this situation, it's late summer. Deer are still using, you know, warm season food plots like beans and peas really well. So anytime you can find some trails or travel corridors coming from bedding to those food sources, those are really good places to get velvet pictures of your bucks, does that have got fawns traveling to and from that food source. So what we've got here is an ag soybean field that the deer are using really heavily. We see browse all up and down this tree line, but there's really no good trees on this tree line to mount a camera on. So what we're gonna do is just cut a little hole out of this cedar tree, and we'll put the camera tucked in back here, and then we'll use these branches that we've cut to kind of weave back in around the camera and kind of camouflage it. And that'll keep any trespassers that might come through from being able to see it, and also just keep it out of the deer's face. So a really good tip to use when you're trying to hide your camera is to use the brush that you just cut from the tree or the bushes, whatever you've used, and kind of use them to camouflage your camera back in a little bit once you've got the limbs cut out of the field of view of the lens. And this will just help blend it right back in like it was before you cut them. But you're still going to have a nice opening there to have a clear field of view for your camera. Hiding your trail camera too is not just for people, but deer sometimes are a little bit spooked when the camera's right in their face. So if you can get it mounted up just a little bit higher, where it's pointing down at an angle, you're going to get a better field of view and a lot less likely for people to see it as well. That looks pretty good right there. So one of the questions we get asked a lot is how often should I check my trail camera, and it's kind of relative to each situation being a little bit different, but a situation like this where we've got a row crop field, you know, it's not going to hurt to go in there and check your camera every couple of weeks. But there is some places, like if you're putting the camera up close to a bedding area or right next to a food source that's tucked back into the woods where they may be using some of the surrounding cover around it pretty regularly, you don't want to be going in there every 3 days to check your camera. That's one really nice thing about these newer cameras that have cell capability and can send you the pictures either through email or through text messaging, is that you don't have to be there to check your camera, and you're not walking into the woods or walking past their bedding area and spooking them by checking your camera, even if it's every couple of weeks. So kind of the location of your camera has a lot to do with how often you should check it, and you know your deer more than anybody, so you can kind of gauge what that needs to be for your property. But it's hard not to want to check them every day because you're always wondering what's on there, but you're not going to help yourself out by checking your camera every couple of days, and you're leaving a lot of scent behind and just kind of educating the deer to your travel pattern and how you come in and out of the woods. The cell capable cameras work really good, especially if you live a long ways from your farm and you can't get up there to check it on a regular basis. They're worth the money to be able to have a camera that's always sending you pictures, and you can kind of keep up with what's going on while you're not there. So let's talk about what the best bait is for your trail camera. There's a lot of good stuff out there on the market, attractant-wise, that you can put out. But regardless of what you decide to put out in front of your camera and what's worked for you in the past, you know, location is really everything. If I'm gonna put some bait out, Ideally, you want to put it in a spot that the deer already want to be there anyway, whether it be a trail coming to and from a food plot or a good travel corridor from a food source to a bedding area. You know, those are the areas that you already know the deer are going to be using the area anyway. So if you put some bait out, you're basically just encouraging them to stop so you can get their picture taken. And I mean, let's face it, we're all wanting pictures of bucks, not slick heads. If you really want to get the best pictures over your bait, regardless of what you decide you want to use, you want to put it in a spot that the deer already want to be at. You know, something we've had a lot of good luck with the last couple of years is this Chestnut Magic. It's a really simple blend of ground and whole chestnuts and rice bran, and it works great, especially in a spot like we've got here where we've got a food plot with peas and beans that the deer are using really hard. And we're just in a roadway that connects to this food source. So the deer are going to be coming from the bedding area, and there's a creek right here. They're going to be coming through here. They walk right down this road every day, and so what we're using it for is just something to encourage them to stop and get a good still picture taken of them right here. And we already know that bucks use this bedding area over here during the warm season, so this is just a perfect area to put a bait out. What you use for bait is really relative to where you are in the country and what's worked for you in the past, but just remember that location is really everything, regardless of what you decide to use for bait.